I'll give you this if you give me that. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. That became Bill Clinton's campaign slogan. Yep. But these people figured out the secret. It's not that, it seems to them, it's not that difficult. They say we give all the time. We enjoy giving. Not once a year, not twice a year. We give moment by moment. And we enjoy that process. We don't care if we get something back. Actually, we would prefer not. Because when we expect something in return, we might be disappointed. And this is a truth in anything in life. You cannot be disappointed unless you expect something. How many times, ladies, you heard this on your anniversary? Honey, close your eyes. And you're expecting diamond ring. And you open your eyes and it's a trash can on wheels. And you want to put them right into that trash can, right? I know, I've been in there. One of the best gifts that I know is the gift of music and dancing. I would like to give you that gift right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy one more time Russian dance ensemble, Niva. I want to thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here so I can share with you some of the gifts that God gave me. I love doing this. America has shared so much with me and my parents when we arrived here. And I'm always touched by the kindness that Americans show to us and also show to one another without asking for anything in return. That is something I never experienced in Russia. It might sound strange to you because kindness is just part of American culture. It's like freedom. You have it. You don't even have to think about it. But it wasn't like that where I grew up. I remember when I was a kid, my parents told me a story about two communists that were talking to one another. And one said, let me ask you, if you had two houses, would you give me one? And the other said, of course, you're my fellow communists. Of course I give you one. If you had two cars, would you give me one? Yeah, why even asking? That's what we're supposed to do, share things. Of course I give you one. If you had two chickens, would you give me one? No. Why not? Well, I have two chickens. Now, this is just a story, but in a way, it represents the mindset of Russian people. And I don't want to make it sound like Russian people are not kind. They're very, very kind. It's just life there was so hard. From the day you're born to the day you die, you're fighting to survive, just to find food for yourself, warm clothing for yourself, all the necessities of life for yourself. It was like that for my grandparents, for my parents. So there was no one to teach me a wonderful feeling that you get when you're helping other people. And I learned that lesson first time when I came to America. I got off the plane and I saw my name written, big letters, America loves Smirnoff. And I said to myself, what a country, all right. And we had a lot of hopes and dreams, my parents and I, but very little money and possessions. And we had to find an apartment. So I started looking around neighborhoods of New York that were run down. And I would ask managers in Russian, "Was есть квартира? Was есть квартира?" which means, "Do you have an apartment?" But I didn't speak English, and they would say, "No comprende, no comprende." Because they didn't speak English either. So I thought no comprende means no apartment. And then I go to another building where the manager was a big guy, and I said, "Comprende?" And he said, "Yep." I said, "Nope." That's not the building I want to live in. So eventually we found a tiny place. It was the smallest apartment that we could find. It was the cheapest one we could find. It was still $240 for the first month's rent. And my parents and I only had $50. And this is when I first experienced the kindness of Americans for a 79-year-old woman named Mrs. Landau. She was the manager of that building. And I guess she saw how tired and afraid we were in our new country. She did something I'll never forget. She let us have that apartment anyway. Later I found out Mrs. Landau barely had money for herself, paid the difference out of her own pocket, and gave us our first home in America. And I asked her, I said, "Why did you do that?" She said, 80 years ago, my parents came to America. They had nothing, and someone helped them. I guess that's what we do here. We help others less fortunate. And she told the tenants of that building that we just arrived and we could use some help. This was 20 years ago. In my mind, that night is as clear as it happened last night. We're sitting in our suitcase, and my dad is looking at the skyline of New York, and he said to me, "Son, look out the window." And my mom said, "Not tonight, I have a headache." And we hear the knock on the door. And at first we got scared because it could have been the KGB, or even worse, encyclopedia salesman. So very timidly I opened the door, and my heart overwhelmed with joy because I saw Mrs. Landau standing there smiling, just like that. And behind her, if you can imagine, the whole hallway and the stairway going up and down was packed with the tenants of that building, and they were holding things in their hands. And I opened the door, and Mrs. Landau said, "I'd like you to meet your neighbors." And these kind people kept rushing into our apartment and handing us things, gifts. I never met these people before. They were giving us food, furniture, clothing, pillows, blankets, dishes, things we did not have and desperately needed. And all they were saying was, "Welcome home." And I looked at my parents. They had tears in their eyes. I had tears in my eyes. I never felt this before. So I'm thinking, this is what it probably feels like to be an American. And these people gave us some things we didn't even know what they were, like a waffle iron. I didn't know what it was. My mom didn't know what it was. She ruined 4 pairs of my pants. They gave us our first real American breakfast: English muffin, French toast, Canadian bacon, and Belgian waffle. They also gave us bodybuilding shampoo. I bet you never looked at it that way. I drank 2 bottles. Thank God for that scented toilet paper. But the reason I bring this up, ladies and gentlemen, in the end of my show is because lately on television I've been hearing a lot how America is not as kind as it was and how people don't care for one another anymore. And I think it might be happening because we see it on television and we hear it on the radio, we read it in the papers. And when you're told something over and over